Hello guys and welcome to part 7 of Hello Python series, and today we're going to be looking at conditions. Now we have common conditional operators, which is greater than, less than, greater or equals to, less than or equals to, and not equals to, right? So we can do operations with them, or we can work with them using integers, strings. So example here is 18 greater than 2? That's the question we're asking here. The first one is 18 greater than 2? Which should be, well, true, right? So when we run the first statement, we get true. So our conditional statement actually works, right? Now, is false equals to true? We should get a false right here, right? Because false is not equals to true. Now, what are we saying? 9 plus 7, that will give us 16 minus 3, which is 13, is still greater than 7. True. Right? So, as you can see, that was very neat. We took 7, we did an operation, mathematical operation, addition operation, we subtracted, and then we asked, is it still greater than 7? And it says yes, right? So, that's condition operators. Now, I want us to look at block indentation. Now, block indentation in Python is used to define controls for loop structures, if clause, and everything to make it fall in line, so that whatever we're putting in, we know that it falls under the if statement block, so the condition works for it. And we're going to, and it's denoted by a semicolon, right? By a colon, not a semicolon. It's denoted by a colon, right? So if you read what is written here, we say block indentation and Python uses indentation to define control and loop constructs. This contributes to Python's readability. Python uses colon symbol, and we can see the symbol right here, right? So blocks in Python, such as functions, loops, if clause, and other constructs, have no ending identifiers. All blocks starts with a colon and then contain the indented line below. Indented line means that you're shifting whatever is under your if statement to its prescribed position. Example of this is our if statement, right? So in our if statement, we basically put in a condition, semicolon, then whatever follows under is called the body. So if the condition is met, what do we want to execute, right? That's what happens underneath. And by default, everything in Python is actually true by default. So what I'm saying here is, on the next line here, I'm saying if true, and that should be true because by default, anything we're calling true should be true, right? So if true, I put my colon there, then I hit enter, and it indents the line. This is an indentation. What it has just done here is an indentation. If you can see, it hasn't gone back to the beginning. When I hit enter, after the semicolon, it actually indents the next line for me. Now, let's experiment and actually remove the colon from there and hit enter. As we can see, it takes us back to the beginning of the next line, which is not an indent. An indent is normally 4 spaces, or a tab key will give you an indent in Python, right? So, as you can see, the colon denotes that an indent is after, means that whatever we're coming to put after that colon falls under whatever statement we're writing. So, mine falls under true. So when I hit enter, it indents the line for me. If we go back, we can actually see that it is 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, 4 spaces gives you an indent, or if you press your tab key once, it should give you 4 spaces, which should be your indent, right? So I want to come back from this. And what are we actually saying here? If true is true, print it is true, right? So when I print that, I get it is true. What am I saying on the next line here? If false, let me just scroll this up a bit so we can all see what we're doing. And what it says here is if false with a semicolon, it means it's going to indent whatever comes after, which means it falls under the if statement. So if false, print, this won't be printed. And because by default it is true, nothing is going to be printed. Because by default it is true. So this false statement doesn't really execute. It just understands it, okay. But based on your condition, it is true. So this if statement doesn't even run. We can also do inlining. We can do mathematical operations inline by saying if 2 plus 2 is equals to 4, print I know math. And 2 plus 2 is equals to 4, right? So we are saying 2 plus 2, which is 4, is it equals to 4, which is yes. And if it's yes, print out I know math. And when we print that, we get I know math, right? So we've looked at the if statements, and we have, going further, apart from the if, we have if-else statements, right? What is the if-else statement? It means that if the first condition is not met, instead of our system breaking down or running our program breaking, we can add an else statement, meaning we're expecting that if this condition shouldn't match, then our next condition should match. Now, how do we do that? We use the if-else statement. So this is our if-else statement. As you can see, if condition, so whatever condition we put here is met, semicolon, which will give us our indent, right? Shows that if this condition is met, executes this body. If the condition is not met, it gives us the else. Else, indentation, print out or execute whatever is in that body. Now, further explanation with an example would actually help, but this is basically just the structure of how an if-else statement works. So whatever you're doing, this is how it's going to work. So an example of it is here. We have if true. Remember, by default, it is true. Automatically, by default, it is true. So what am I saying here? If true, semicolon, and the line is indented, right? So that's how we indent in Python. So if true, print is true. Else, this won't be printed, right? And obviously, by default, it is true. So I'm expecting to see it is true. It is true, right? So let's go down to the next one. And we're saying if false, print, this won't be printed, else it is false. So what do you think we're going to get here? You're right, we're going to get it is false. Why? Because if false is not true. So this statement underneath is not going to be printed. And because it's indented, it means it's under this statement. So whatever is true for here, bring out this. And whatever is true for this, bring out that. So since here is false, we don't print out this statement. It will skip to the next condition. That else print false. So that's what it printed out, right? Else print it is false. That's what it printed out. Now, in case we have more than one condition we want to satisfy before an operation is run, we actually have something we call an if-else statement. So we say if so and so condition is not met, else if so and so condition is not met, then else, right? Which is our last statement. Else is always the end. It means if nothing else can be done to this, then end with this. So our system doesn't break. It's a way of controlling your system, right? So I want to take in an input from a user, and I want to see whether the input from our user is greater than 2, greater than 4, less than 4, or is equals to 4, right? And remember that when we take in an input from a user, it is taken in as a string type. So as you can see, after my if statement, I have converted whatever is coming in to a float type, so I can actually ask the expression. I can actually make sense of what is going on here, right? So because it's now a float type, it has made it an int type. Float type has made a numerical type, which means I can do mathematical operations on it, basic mathematical operations on it, right? So what am I saying here? If greater than 4, print number is bigger than 4. If the number is less than 4, print the number is smaller than 4. Else number is 4. So this is the else if statement. So it's allowing us to add a second condition to our if statement, right? So if this first condition is not met, try this condition. If this condition is not met, our last result is to print the number is 4, right? So let's run this and see what happens. I'm going to input 4. Number is 4. So basically, when I inputted the number and it saw that it's 4, it skipped all of these operations and just went down to the last one. We can rerun this operation again. And I want to put in 8 this time. What does it say? Number bigger than 4, because the if condition in the first statement is met, right? So it tells me that is what? is bigger than 4. Let's run this again, and I say 1 is smaller than 4. As you can see, it went through the first statements and noticed that nope, this number is not greater than 4. Went to the else if statements and saw that yeah, this number is less than 4, which means it's smaller than 4, right? So how do we test multiple conditions, right? Excuse me. We can test multiple conditions in one line, a single line, right? And how can we go about this? So I've declared 2 variable names here, to and from, and in it I've declared 1 and 6. So I want to put in a condition that if to and from are greater than 2, print yes, else print no. And this should work, right? Because we've declared our variable names here, to and from. So if to and from, it means if both of them together are greater than 2, print yes, else print no. So when we come down here and we print that, we actually get yes, which is not supposed to be, because it's saying and. It means both conditions should be greater than 2, because we're saying if to and from are greater than 2, then print yes. But 2 over here is not greater than 2, right? So what's wrong here? Over here, I think we're supposed to condition them individually. For it to actually work, we're supposed to condition them individually. Now, how will we go about that? So I would say if 2 is greater than 2 and from is greater than 2, print yes, else print no. So I think this should actually give us our right answer, which should be no, right? So as you can see, this actually rectified it. So when we are doing multiple conditioning on one line, or testing for multiple conditions on one line, it is best to set each condition individually from each other. Especially when you're using conditions and or operators, it's best to separate them out individually. Otherwise, Python wouldn't really understand it the way you would want it to understand it, right? So let's move on to the next one. So still on multi-line condition, inline condition, we're saying that 2 is equals to 1, right? So what's my condition here? If 2 is equals to 1 or 4 or 6, print yes, else print no. So what are we expecting here? It should be a no, right? Because 2 here has been denoted by the variable, by the value 1. And we're saying that if 2 is equals to 3 or 4 or 6, print yes. So we're expecting it to print no. But when we run this, we actually get a yes. Why? Because previously, like I said, when you're working with conditions, make sure that each condition is separated. So if I'm saying 2 is equals to 3, or this should also be 2 is equals to 4, or 2 is equals to 6, print yes, else print no. And this should actually give us our right output we're looking for, right? Which should be, let's run that again. And we get no, right? So this means that each condition should be stated individually for it to understand the multi-line assignment condition you're putting towards it, right? So it makes sense of it, so you get the correct output you're looking for. Because remember, guys, garbage in, garbage out. Giggle, and that's how it works. So we can also use the in operator, which we have looked before, which I have actually gone into. If you haven't seen it before, go back to the previous videos. I'm sure you would actually find the in operator because we've used it a lot, but I'll still explain it here again. So what are we saying? That if 2, which we know is equals to 1, is inside the values of 3, 4, and 6, print yes, else print no, right? It's a simple way of writing it. It's 2, which was 1, in 3, 4, or 6, print yes or no. So our output here should be no, right? Let's run that, and it's no. So what if we change the value of 2? And I give it, I reassign the value of 2 to 4. What should be our answer here? We have reassigned the value of 2, the variable name 2, and given it the value of 4, right? So when we run this, we should get a yes, because 2 is 4. So is 2 in 3, 4, 6? Yes, it is. So that's how we use the in operator or the in function to actually see if we have a value inside something. It helps you look into what you have and try and see if what I have is in it, right? So I've opened, it's like opening a container and checking to see if your cookie is inside. And yes, we got our cookie, which was 4, and we should be good with that. So we also have ternary operator, which is used for inline condition expressions, right? So what do we mean by that? We mean that we can, instead of saying if 2 is greater than 3, put in your semicolon, enter, print greater than 2, else, colon, enter, print smaller than or equal to 2. We can actually do that in one line. It is that simple. We can do all of that in one line. And our first example we're going to take just 2 examples of that before we end today. And the first one is, I've given the variable name n, and I've denoted it the value of 5. I've assigned it the value of 5, right? What I'm saying is that if n is greater than 2, if n is greater than 2, then greater than 2, else smaller than 2. So if the condition is met, print what is on the right side, else print what is on the left side. So what would be an answer? It's greater than 2, right? So when we run that, we get greater than 2. We don't get an error, we don't get a bug. It's actually a nicer way of writing out if-else statements in one line, right? So it's called a ternary operator, right? It's used for inline conditional expressions. Inline conditional expressions, I repeat. So another one we can actually look at here is, again, we've assigned n the value of 5, and we're saying if n is greater than 10, hello, else. And we can actually see that this one is actually nested because we're seeing 2 if statements. So we're saying if, else, if, and else again. It's a nested statement. So we'll look at nested if-else statements as we move on, but this is another way of writing it using the ternary operations, which I thought we should actually look at. So we're saying if n is greater than 10, print hello, else goodbye. If n is greater than 5, goodbye, else good day. Right? So what do we think we're going to get here? Think about this for a second. I'm going to repeat that. If n is greater than 10, hello, else goodbye. If n is greater than 5, what? If n is greater than 5, hello, else good day. So what do we think we're going to get here? A good day. Because n is equals to 5, right? So all of this doesn't apply. All of this doesn't apply because, first of all, this is saying if n is greater than, say, goodbye, which doesn't work because n is equals to 5. So because n is less than 5, it falls on the last else statement, which says good day. So I hope you enjoyed part 7, which dealt with conditions. I hope you guys can just take this code, mimic around with it, play with it, and you can see how good of a function it is and how really good it is. Like, basically programming fundamentals, if-else statements goes a long way. I don't think there's any program written out there that doesn't use an if-else statement or a condition in their program. So master this, and I promise you actually do better than you can imagine. So let's keep up the good work, guys. And if you do like the video, subscribe, like again, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.